Okay. Let's see if we have everything we need here. Okay. All right. So I am going to get started now. Let me go ahead and get a few things done. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my presentation up. Here we go. Let me. Okay. All right. Well, hey. First of all, I'd like to. Okay. 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 So here we go. So, hello, my name is Daryl Johnson, and I am with Frontier Marketing. And I am seriously glad to have you here. This is going to be a great discussion around how we create a consistent flow of residents with PPC, and then also how we use information to ultimately manage the cost and understand whether or not this stuff is actually working for us. And so I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you. I've had the fortunate capability of being part of a lot of different drug addiction facilities and other dual diagnosis facilities privately, from Acadia Healthcare to Timberline Knolls to several others, and help them understand not only how to use marketing, but to also how to use Salesforce to combine with the marketing to realize what's actually driving us qualified patients, and are we actually learning anything from the cost and benefit of that, and do we have ROI? So I am going to now kind of get through this, and let's get going. So who is Frontier Marketing? So my name is Daryl Johnson. I'm the CEO. We focus a lot on healthcare, and so from drug addiction to dual diagnosis to cash-based healthcare like cosmetic surgery and spine surgery, bariatrics, things of that nature. And we're both Google partners and Bing Ads partners as well. So we do this, and we're Salesforce.com partners. So we do this for a living all day, every day. So what can you kind of expect from this webinar? We plan on kind of discussing the problems that we face. We're going to also deal with some tools, some things that we've learned in this process, and then we'll give you some kind of insider tips on selecting the right technology, some of the things that you may want to do, pieces of technology you may want to buy. So you're going to be able to see kind of all of those things at once. So should be a lot of fun. Okay. Let's see here. Real quick, let me throw this down. Okay. Let's move to the next slide. Okay. All right. So the big question, the big problem, how do I know that my marketing is driving admissions and at what price? So the big question everybody has. So let's start with this. Treatment centers, at their very core, want to help people. And so they also want to make sure that they have a full census. And from that, they need profitability, because at the end of the day, you've got to pay everybody there. You've got to be able to bring forth the resources necessary to deliver the level of care that you need. And so the one thing to remember, which is hard sometimes, is you can't help people long term without being profitable. And so you got to be profitable ultimately to make that happen. And so we're going to talk about how we do that. So what is the best way to help people? So if your goal from a drug addiction point of view, for example, is to stabilize the level of care and stabilize them at a level of care and then get them to a lower level of care, you've got to understand who your program is built for clinically and understand who your program is built for financially. And once you understand that, then it makes things much easier. Because at the end of the day, if that patient isn't appropriate for you, you're wasting their time and yours. There's nothing more disheartening than listening to a call when someone goes on for 20 or 25 minutes about how they got to where they are, what is ultimately drove them to seeking help, and then telling them that they're not appropriate clinically and financially after all of that. It's much better for them and for you to be able to do a little bit of more qualification up front, control the call, and then ultimately get them to a level of care that is appropriate for where they're at in their desire for recovery. So, a full census. So I know it's a little bit of a unicorn. That sometimes it's probably about as easy as trying to find one. But a full census can do a lot of things. It allows you to hire more clinicians. It allows you to hire more support staff. You can develop new therapies, whether it's equine or art therapy or whatever these things may be. It can help you invest and upgrade your housing if you have housing as a component of your level of care, and it allows you to do more marketing. What happens in a lot of facilities when they're not full is they tend to make compromises in acuity and in financial things as well. And so when you have a full census, the pressure to make those compromises significantly reduces. So that's really our goal. So I know this is going to seem kind of like a no kidding type response. I mean, I think everybody kind of gets this, but if full census is our goal, then how do we do that? So the answer is real simple. You got to have more qualified leads. You got to lose as few of those leads as possible in the evaluation process during admissions. And you need to be able to track all of your wins and losses by channel and expand where it's most profitable and get rid of channels that are not profitable. That's it. Now, that's a lot like losing weight. Losing weight's very simple. You just consume less calories than you burn in a day. But the implementation of that can be a little bit more complex, and we're going to talk about kind of how that works. So step number one, if you're going to get more qualified leads, the first thing you've got to do is understand your needs. And so we want to begin with the end in mind. So we need to ask ourselves, how many admissions do we need monthly per level of care? I always want to break things up by level of care because the revenue and the program requirements are different for level of care. So we don't want to lump outpatient or IOP with residential and inpatient because the value and the census requirements and all of that stuff are totally different. We also want to understand what is our average revenue per admission per level of care, because this is going to help us to understand our maximum marketing cost is. We want to understand what percentage do we need to convert leads to residents. What is our current percentage? Do we convert 15% or 30%? Just a note to self, if you're primarily in the referral source space, that conversion rate is going to be higher than direct. So we would need, if you don't have a lot of experience in direct, we want to bring that down. But if you do have experience in direct marketing, then we would want to figure out what that conversion percentage is. And then from there, what is our maximum marketing cost per admission? So typically that's a percentage of revenue. And so we actually have a very cool worksheet that you can download and fill all this stuff in. And so if you will email me, and I have my information at the end, I will send you this, not only this presentation, but I'll also send you all the worksheets that I'm going to reference in here as well. But it's going to help you basically lay out all of this cost, and it's going to do two things. It's going to help you understand how many admissions you need, but it's also going to help you understand what your budget ultimately needs to be able to move forward. So number two. So once you've understood what you want out of the program, the next is you got to understand your marketing avatar, or who is it that you really want to go after here. And so who is the perfect person for your program with detail? What's their age? What's their gender? You know, we need to realize that sometimes we're going to be talking to a loved one and not to the individual themselves. What's the level of acuity? What are their likes and dislikes? What do they read? What movies do they watch? All that stuff. And what's their geography? So if your answer to the marketing avatar starts with anyone who, then it's not specific enough. So that we really want to get down into that level. So there's a worksheet here that you can download that helps you break down your avatar and answer all those questions. So you can sit down with your team and figure out exactly who it is that you want to target. And this is really important because we're about to get into messaging and a bunch of other stuff, and having that absolutely accurate is going to be critical. So the third is you need to be able to understand your unique selling proposition. So hint the elevator pitch. What if your prospect that's perfect for you is looking at your ad, why is it should they pick you over anybody else on that's advertising as well? So you've got to be able to answer that question because it helps in writing the message. The good news is, at the end of the day, there's only 3 buckets that unique selling propositions fit into: price, quality, and speed. And you really can only do 2. You can't be the lowest price and the best quality and the fastest. You have to do 2 is the maximum you can have. But for price, it could be insurance taken. What's my self-pay rates? Things of that nature. And again, I'm not suggesting you be the lowest price person, but price is where some people play. The other is quality. Quality could be convenience, the unique therapies that you offer, success rate, amenities. It could be niche specializations like we only do females, or we only do males, or only do adults, or we only do adolescents. But it's finding that those aspects of your program that sing to your audience. And speed is typically about how quick can we admit. Some people also want to lump the speed of how quick that you can get them through your program. Most people don't really think about it that way. So I think that success rate is important, but I think that in your speed, it's really how fast can you get them through the process and into your facility. Because the quicker you can do that, the quicker you can get a yes. So once you define those things, then you want to look at channels to be able to promote that message. So if I know what I need out of the program, or out of this process, I know who my perfect prospect is, and I know what my unique selling proposition is, then I want to look at my channels and say, where is it that I can get the most out of my investment based upon what I'm looking for? So really, at the end of the day, you ought to have direct channels which are going to be like TV, print, radio, things of that nature. You're going to have online channels, which are going to be like PPC, organic SEO, social, things of that nature, email marketing. And then you're going to have outreach, which is really your face-to-face marketing, people that are out meeting with treatment centers and hospitals and doctors and things of that nature. So while we primarily do PPC and do the reporting analytics around it, we are huge believers in multi-channel attacks on marketing. Because at the end of the day, if you're depending on one channel, then you don't own your facility. You're renting it from whoever owns that channel. So if you get all of your leads through Google Ads, then you don't really own your practice. Google Ads is, you're renting it from them, because a business is twofold: the ability to generate clients and the ability to execute a product against what they want. And so if somebody else owns a channel for the clients and you get everything from them, then that's a bad thing. So we're huge believers in the fact that you should be spread out in what you do. So we love PPC for addiction centers because it allows us to do several things that are important in any direct response campaign. First, it can be cost effective in the fact that we can target exactly who we want. We can target where they are, we can target hours of time, we can target income ranges, we can target female versus male, we can target different intent based upon what keywords we buy. We can really get down into exactly who we want. The second is it's specific. So I can have different messaging. If I want to talk about heroin addiction, I can have an ad that's specifically about heroin addiction. If I want to talk about dual diagnosis, I can have an ad that specifically mentions dual diagnosis. So it creates the environment to take these micro audiences and give a very specific message to them that is on the money. And it's fast. So you can usually start seeing results within weeks. And results are going to be phone calls and form submissions. So very important. So that's why we love PPC. So, why should we consider it? Because there is an identifiable, motivated market of people looking for addiction treatment online. Unfortunately, addiction is still considered a shame disease. So people won't ask all their neighbors about referrals, but they'll go online for hours to find you. If you just go look at the search results, go type in, drug rehab in whatever the city or state you're in, and you're going to see that your competition is using that channel. And, most likely they're doing it because it works. And so they wouldn't be spending the money if it didn't work. The great thing about the other thing we love about PPC is that it's measurable. I can get an exact dollar amount that it takes for me to get someone to call you or to fill out a form. And again, we identify the unique person that's expressed interest. We provided a way for them to communicate with us, usually via phone number or email or both. And that creates the leads that your admissions team can then work to get into your facility. So, PPC can also help other forms of marketing like traditional print, direct mail, and others. If you're about to do a direct mail piece and you don't know, should the ad focus on, our therapies, or should it focus on our levels of care, write ads to that group and split test them against each other, figure out which headline works the best, and then use that headline on your direct mail. So there's some testing involved in PPC that you can do that's very inexpensive, but allows you to really hone in on what works and what doesn't work. So now let's talk about, how much do I spend and how do I know it works? That's really the big question, is that anytime I deal with addiction facilities is, how do I know that the leads that are coming in from this process, we're actually putting in a bet? That's a big question. So, and is it worth it to us? So we have a tool that, again, I'll be happy to show you. It's called the PPC Profitability Assessment Tool, and we talked about it a little earlier. But it will help you figure out what your targets should be and what your total budget should be. So again, just email me at the end of this. My contact information will be here, and I'll be happy to send it to you. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to take you through how it works, but it's very simple. So where does PPC work best? In all kinds of healthcare where people make real decisions about their treatment and it's not 100% insurance based, or if there's just significant competition, it works well. So plastic surgery, substance abuse treatment, behavioral health, spine surgery, bariatrics, pain management, it works well in any of those environments. So again, the second step is about losing as few as possible, right? So the phone's ringing and the admissions person's on the phone with them. How do I get that person to admit, right? So I'm going to tell you right up front, to make this process work, you're going to have the right people on board. And I've put Salesforce in dozens of facilities, and I can tell you without a doubt that you got to have the executive team, which is the consumer of the high-level reporting. You got to have the admissions department, which is the person that is tracking the data about the individual calls. You got to have outreach involved, who's putting in referral sources and tracking their activity against it. And then you got to have marketing involved in being able to attribute what campaigns and programs we're running to drive leads. You got to have all four people on board. And so, or it won't work. And not just Salesforce, any system, it doesn't matter. Those four groups have to be together. The second question you need to ask yourself is admissions trained in converting leads to residents? One of the things I do when I go in and consult drug addiction facilities is I ask them who their sales team is, and they always point to the outreach guys, and I tell them that the primary sales team is the admissions team, because they're the ones that are on the phone with the person who's going to ultimately decide whether or not they're going to come here or not. The job of outreach is to manage channels. So they're channel managers, but they're not the final arbiter of the sale. Admissions is. So have you trained them in moving leads to residents? And it's really about qualifying them quickly, handling objections, and presumptive closing, which we're going to talk about. And then the third thing you got to have is, do you have a single source tracking system? Do you have a system that all four of those people, executive team, admissions, outreach, and marketing, that they can get on and enter in their data so that you can report real time? Who's admitted? If they haven't admitted, why not? Where did the leads come from? Right? That's what you've got to know. And so, as one of my favorite quotes when I go out and speak is, what gets measured gets done. That's attributed to Peter Drucker, but it's also attributed to Edward Deming and a few other guys. But it's absolutely true. If we measure things, things happen. And so we've got to take every single call and measure it and know what has occurred. So we recommend Salesforce.com to be able to do that. So we think it's the best system. Why? It is that single source, online hosted system for all stakeholders to use. It's easy to customize to your specific needs. There's a real rich third-party add-on market. So if you want to add email marketing and tracking and all these different things to it, you can do that. It's got it can integrate with call tracking. It can integrate with form submissions, so it can automatically create leads out of that. And it can track key performance indicators like average length of stay, admissions by level of care, lost admissions by reason, how many calls are we getting in a period of time, and not just calls, but also qualified opportunities. So you can screen out, if you don't take Medicare and Medicaid, you can screen those out, populations that aren't served, general info calls, so you can get a close ratio and really understand how well you're performing. So it's you can do it by hand, but what that does is basically transfers the work typically to the admissions director, and it's typically very late and it's not very complete because they're trying to assimilate all these pieces of data, and it's just about impossible. So Salesforce.com typically is the best. And one of the things I love that Edward Deming always says is, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And so our goal is to get real data. So a little extra bonus here. So but wait, there's more. So you can track all the calls in Salesforce. You can use call tracking technology. Dialogue Tech and CallRail both integrate with Salesforce. Dialogue Tech, it's a little bit more expensive, but it probably does a better job of integration. It'll actually push the call data into the lead that you create. You can also automatically assign channels to forms. Visible and Data Analytics both do that. You can get these on the App Exchange. So when someone fills out a form and it creates a lead, it'll actually stamp the attribution data. It came from AdWords. This was the keyword that it typed in, or it came from a referral source like The Fix or IADEP or whatever. So it helps you to know where that stuff's coming from. And you can also integrate email marketing directly into Salesforce and manage your lists there. We like iContact and ExactTarget. Full disclosure, ExactTarget is actually part of Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com bought them. iContact's the other one. They're fairly inexpensive, but they do a great job. Okay, so the second part we talked about, once you get the single source system, is the admissions training. So what do we need to train admissions in? You got to track everything in Salesforce.com, all unique calls, and our goal is to track them to a final state. And a final state is either they've admitted, we've said no as a facility, or they've said no as a patient. So Salesforce allows you to track all of that across groups. So we have to train people in Salesforce.com. Then we have to train people to qualify quickly. You'd be amazed how many times I listen to calls and do consulting on kind of some basic sales coaching. And the two questions that ought to come out quickly is, what is it that you're currently struggling with? Which is, why are you calling and what's your acuity? And the other is, very quickly, is, do you plan on using insurance for your stay? And I'm assuming that you take some form of insurance there. It's a very low impact way to understand what their financial capabilities are, if it's just Medicaid or Medicare or private pay or whatever. And I suggest asking both of those questions up front, so that if they don't meet your requirements, you can go ahead and divert them to a facility that can, without spending 30 minutes on the phone to figure it out. So having them understand how to qualify quickly was really just building a script. And then handling objections. So once you've gone through the qualification steps of the financial and the clinical, there's typically three big objections that admissions has to handle. Price, which could be out of pocket, it could be out of network costs, whatever those things are. Geography, I don't want to go that far, or it's too close to me. And the speed to admit, I don't want to wait till Thursday, or whatever it may be. So you want to be able to I like to be able to give all of my admissions teams a cheat sheet that has what the objections are and what the responses to those objections are, which dramatically drives up compliance very simply. And so it's a great way to jump ahead of the curve when it comes to the ability for admissions to close. Also, we always want to qualify and move to the next step. A lot of times what happens is people don't treat a sales process as multi-step. So the first time we call, depending on what the order is of your sales process, it changes from facility to facility. But we want to get them to a financial evaluation. Then we want to get them to a clinical. Then we want to get them to commit to those two things. And then we want to get them to commit to scheduling an admission, assuming they pass those two criteria. And we always want to presumptively close to the next step. Can we start your financial evaluation now? Can we start your clinical evaluation now? I have an opening. Does Thursday work? Assume they're going to say yes and put them in the spot. And you're going to get them at a much higher rate than if you don't do that. I never, ever, ever put the decision to move forward where it has to come from the patient. The patient has to say yes, but I'm going to ask. So it's very important. And the last step, which is really important, is making your marketing profitable. So how do we do this? So we talked about, understanding how to generate more leads. We talked about the qualification step and making sure we lose as few people through the funnel of sales as possible. And the last is really making your marketing profitable. So step number one is you always want to first set goals, always, before you spend a nickel. We want to estimate the lead cost. We want to estimate our lead to resident conversion rate, and we need to have an estimated total acquisition cost for the resident, which I can help you do, and also the tools that I'm going to provide at the end of this will help you do. Then, once we've set those goals up, then we compare that to reality using the data that we get from Salesforce.com. What's our actual lead cost by channel? What's the actual lead to resident conversion rate by channel? What's the actual total acquisition cost by channel? Actual revenue, and then my favorite deal is ROAS, or return on ad spend. How much revenue are we getting for the ad spend that we're getting? And so, and then that allows us to start the optimization. So if we have accurate Salesforce.com data, then managing the ROI is an achievable event. Okay. So, a little bonus, and you'd be surprised how many times I do this. But once you've set minimum profitability goals, I do not believe in acquiring business at a loss. Now, I may not acquire it for a specific amount of profit, but I'm not going to acquire it at a loss. So, assuming that, do not optimize channels until your facility is full. There's always this: we need it cheaper. We need it cheaper. No. You need to fill the joint with people that meet your criteria that are profitable, either minorly profitable or majorly profitable. Once you have it full, then start to optimize. Because here's the basic truth: an empty bed yesterday can't be filled today. So you only want to cull down those more expensive channels when there's an opportunity cost, meaning I can't fill that bed because it's full. And this is a big mistake that I think a lot of facilities make when they're trying to boost their revenue and profitability. That revenue that covers your fixed cost is better than it being empty. So you only want to optimize profitability once there is an opportunity cost because you're full. So then start managing these channels down. So it's very important to manage the profitability, but what you're doing is making sure that you're profitable, period. Once you filled it, then we look at what's most profitable. So we'll start saying, well, if our email marketing is more profitable than our direct mail, then maybe I cut down direct mail and spend more on email marketing, because now I'm full, right? I have a wait list, and so now I want to get the most profitable channels going. So very important thing. Tracking marketing effectiveness makes everybody happy. So, your owners are happy, your executive director's happy, admissions happy, clinicians happy. I have worked in facilities that are 25% full. I worked in facilities that are 50% full. I worked in facilities that are 100% full with a wait list. And I can tell you without hesitation, working in the full one is the best. And the primary reason why is because, when you're full, you're able to provide more. Because really, if you think about it, behavioral health from a facility point of view has significant fixed costs. And so there's some variable costs, but most of it's fixed. So if you're able to cover that fixed cost with extra revenue, then the ability to get even a further difference between you and your clients, you and your competition, is even better. So that all sounds great, right? And I know a lot of that was kind of high to mid-level, but as you can imagine, trying to get through all this data in a short call is hard to do. So why partner with us? Why Frontier Marketing? Well, we are, first and foremost, we do a lot of digital advertising for addiction centers. We currently provide PPC and digital advertising services at every level of care, from detox to inpatient to residential to PHP to IOP to outpatient and to sober living. So we understand the space. We know what it takes to be able to separate yourself from the competition, and we know what it takes to be able to do this profitably. The other is we got a lot of experience in Salesforce.com implementations. I've worked on inside of addiction and behavioral health. I've worked on implementations of Salesforce that were 4 people and 1,000 people. And I've flown all over the U.S. and trained people. I've done a lot of stuff. So the third's training. So I've sat down with literally hundreds of intake people and hundreds of outreach people, training them. And one of the unique things about our training is it's very centric to their job, because at the end of the day, every admissions department is trying to achieve the same general thing. And so we're very well versed in that. And the other is reporting analytics. We're experts in Google Analytics and in AdWords and Bing Ads, and understanding from a holistic point of view, are we profitable or not in all of these channels? So that's really what we focus in on. So I want to thank you for your time today. And then any questions that you have, I want you, and I'm going to move to, let me do one thing I forgot about. If you'll, Daryl at frontiermarketing.com, if you'll send me an email at this email address, I will send you a copy not only of this presentation, but of all the tools that we talked about in here that will help you map all of those things out. And if you want to set up a complimentary one-on-one consultation with me on either how to strategically put forth a digital advertising campaign, or just to outsource it and run it for you, or Salesforce, just email me at the same email address as well. I'd be more than happy to talk to you and help you out, give you references to facilities that we do a lot of business with, so that you can feel confident in the decision that you're going to make. So I'm now going to move the presentation here a little bit, and I'm going to see if there are any questions. Okay. So Donna, I see that you are on right now, which is great. I'm glad you're here. So let me know via the chat if there are any questions that you have on this. Let's see. We'll probably need to do this next time in a more in a larger environment. But I think that's probably, doesn't seem like there are any questions. So let me see here. Okay, well, I think we're done then. And again, my goal ultimately is to be able to help people. And I think that if we are able to do that, then we're useful. And so anything I can help you with, any suggestions I can give you, anything that I can do to help you actually make the process of understanding and leveraging marketing, I'm here for you. So with that, I'm done. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. You can go to frontiermarketing.com, or you can call me at 972-586-7707. Again, that's 972-586-7707, and I'm at extension 2. Or email me, and I'll be happy to help you from there. Again, thanks for your time, and I hope to talk to you soon.